welcome to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 405, and today's date is July 2nd, 2014. And the title of this episode is Full Out False Flag Event on Schedule. Syrian Electronic Army allegedly cyber attacks Reuters. And I was wondering when they were going to bring in the Syrian Electronic Army, and here it is. They're already bringing it up in corporate news stories, letting us know that Syrian Electronic Army is out there and they are attacking the news media. And of course, this brings us to the point that they are preparing something, and something very, very big. They realize they need to get into this area. They want to prop up the US dollar, and they need some type of an event to be created to allow the forces to move into the Middle East section. Now, of course, this will start World War III. It will cover up the economic collapse, and they are counting on this. But as of right now, they realize the American people, Congress, they are not for going into Iraq whatsoever. The approval rate on Congress is very, very low. The people are saying we should be completely out of this area. We should not be getting involved. And of course, they know, and when I say they, I'm talking about the central bankers, U.S. government, they realize this system is falling apart. The Fed was out there explaining that everything is fine. They're not going to raise rates at this point. They feel that everything is pretty darn stable. They've been feeding us the illusion that we are in a recovery. All we're hearing is great recovery news at this time. Isn't it amazing how all of a sudden we're hearing incredible recovery news, and they're continually pushing this propaganda out there because they want everyone to believe and make sure they understand we are in a recovery, because when this event occurs, they will swing this around and say we were on a recovery path, and this group country brought the economy to its knees, and this is exactly where we are headed at this point. Now, of course, they're bringing up the Syrian Electronic Army because they want in everyone's minds that they can pretty much cyber attack anything. They're also bringing in the Russians because we have to remember the Russians are backing Assad in Syria. They are backing Maliki. And they want us to make sure that we understand that a lot of this is also coming from Russia. So they're really doing all of this at once. And then we have the terrorists out there. They're the ones who are threatening and going to do something here in the United States. Now, I can see this turning into many different types of false flag events. Of course, we have the Russian, the Syrian Electronic Army, which would then bring down the financial institutions and the power grid. And then we also have the terrorists out there that would use chemical weapons, dirty nukes on the United States. We can see this having many different effects across the country and allowing the U.S. government, central bankers to say, look, we have been attacked. Of course, we've been attacked for our freedoms and our democracy, and now we need to go and get these people. And of course, the United States people will look at the situation and say, we are sitting in darkness. They've taken our money. They plunged us into an economic collapse. Yes, war is the answer, but as we all know, war is really not the answer. It's the only answer for the central bankers. It really isn't the answer for the American people. And the question we have to ask, and everyone around the country needs to ask, why would any of these countries really want to do this? They wouldn't. There is absolutely no motive whatsoever. The motive is with the central bankers. The collapse is coming. The economy is faltering. They cannot keep it going. They realize this. And everything throughout history shows they clean everything up, they hide everything with war, and then what do? They restart the system. This is exactly what's going on, and this is why they're doing this. Why do you think over all these years they've been doing the pivot to Asia? They've been doing the pivot to Russia, encircling Russia, putting up the missile shields, out in the Pacific, moving bases, planting missiles, surrounding China. This has been prepared for a very long time. It's not something that just came up yesterday. I've been reporting on this for over a year and a half now and telling everyone they've been moving military assets. I did this every single day. Of course, people told me that no, there is no war, but now we see the picture is becoming much, much clearer. We can see we are headed towards that direction. And all we're seeing right now is provoking all over the place. We're seeing the United States government, the Ukrainian government provoking Russia. We see terrorists in the Middle East. We see everything falling apart in the Middle East. And the central bankers realize as they realize the people, the tribes are rising up. It's getting much more difficult to maintain control. And this is why we're seeing all of this happen at this time. And also, once these countries fall and they start selling the oil and removing the U.S. dollar in their as the reserve currency, get rid of the central bank, other countries are going to follow, and this is why we see countries all around the world, Australia, New Zealand, North Korea, Russia, Canada, UK, Switzerland, many of the European countries, France, all taking precautions for when the U.S. dollar collapses. They realize it's on its deathbed. They just don't know when it's going to happen, but they're protecting themselves by having bilateral trades with China, setting up clearinghouses for the yuan and renminbi. Everyone is taking precautions. And of course, at this point, everybody wants their gold back because they realize gold is money. The paper currency is just that. It's absolutely nothing. It's worth nothing. And when the system comes down, the paper will just kind of disappear. And the dollar will collapse on itself. And of course, once we have this devaluation, prices are going to skyrocket. And this is why everyone needs to be prepared. This is why everyone needs to get food, water, medical supplies, batteries, weapons to protect your family. You need all of this because we are heading down towards the home stretch here, and you can see everything is starting to really heat up, and you can really feel that they are preparing something very, very big. Now, I see a lot of people saying that's going to be July 4th. Yes, that would be a great date to do this entire event on Independence Day. Will it happen on July 4th? Not too sure. At this point, I'm going to say not really, but it would be a great date for them to do it, to say they took away our independence. Of course, we'll probably most likely see something on a different date, which they specifically chose to have this event, just like 9/11. They wanted that out there saying 9/11, 9/11. They're going to do something else, and we're just going to have to be prepared for what is coming. Let's get into the economic collapse news, and let's talk about what is going on around here. Well, we realize that all these college graduates who are graduating college are having a very rough time finding work. 80% of them cannot find work, and what we're seeing is that many of them have student loans, they're getting part-time jobs, or they just have no job, and they cannot pay this back. And of course, the Obama administration is out there, and they are helping them with their loan modifications, deferring payments, because they realize they can't find these jobs. But starting July 1st, all new loans for 2013-2014 student year will increase from 3.86% to 4.66%, a 20% increase in interest. This is going to make it much more difficult, and it's going to put more of these college students who have part-time jobs into making less money, because now more money is going to their student loans, and it's going to make it's harder for them to move out of their parents' basement. And this is going to make the economy actually worse, not better. And of course, you have to remember the youth, they are the foundation of the next generation. And if they're not making money and saving money, putting money away, spending money in retail, then eventually purchasing a house and a car, this whole entire system cannot be sustained. And we're seeing this throughout Europe. We're seeing youth unemployment anywhere from 45 to almost 60%. This cannot be sustained. It cannot work. What are we seeing here in the United States? Well, factory orders have dropped most since January. Inventories are now up, and they're most since October of 2011. Factory orders dropped around 0.5%. We had unemployment come out with ADP saying that they have increased the number of jobs in the market. Now, we've seen this before, and we've seen them go back and revise it down and revise it down. This is the manipulated numbers, the manipulated calculations they're using to show that we are in this fantastic recovery. And what's going to happen is later on, they're just going to revise all the numbers and bring them down to where it should have been. And right now, inventories, shipments, and unfilled orders are highest levels ever. Now, Janet Yellen is out there, and she is saying that she sees little threat to financial stability. Now, I've heard this once before. That's right. It was back in 2008 when Bernanke was out there, and he was saying, everything is contained. They don't see any problem. They see a little dip in housing, but they see a strong recovery. The subprime is contained. And during the same year, we had the stock market crash and put us into a recession/depression. The Fed came out and said they are not forecasting any type of recession in the near future. And we see the same thing happening right now. Federal Reserve Chair Janet Yellen says she doesn't see a need for the Fed to start raising interest rates to address the risk that extremely low rates could destabilize the financial system. She's seeing no problems, but what we really understand is they can't raise the interest rates whatsoever. It would be devastating to the entire market, and they realize this, and this is why they're holding back in raising the interest rates. They're not going to do it this time. We see the student loan rates being raised, and that is going to wreak havoc on students. Now, we understand there is a huge immigration problem, and of course we understand that this was a complete setup. But what we're seeing right now is that newspapers in El Salvador and Honduras are encouraging their country's young people to head north to the United States, promising them an easy life courtesy of the Obama administration. During their stay, in addition to accommodations and food, children will receive English classes, play sports, and participate in targeted programs while immigration authorities contact their families. So as we can tell and as we see, this was a complete setup. And of course, we understand there were ads in the classifieds looking for people to escort these children across the border. And right now, a congressman is trying to get into the facilities of where these children are. In Oklahoma, a congressman who visited an army base being used to house illegal immigrants' children now wonders what the federal government is hiding after he was denied access to the facility. He said there is no excuse for denying a federal representative from Oklahoma access to a federal facility in Oklahoma where unaccompanied children are being held. And this is coming from Representative Jim Bridenstine. And it's just unbelievable. They will not let him in. He showed up at the facility, and he says he told the guard that he is a congressman and he should be able to be let in to see what is going on there. And of course, these guards are wearing brown shirts, and they call them brown shirts. And this reminds me of Nazi Germany, where you had the brown shirts, and the brown shirts are saying that he cannot take a look at the children. They have strict orders. And a new fence has been erected by HHS, completely surrounding the barracks and covered with material to totally obscure the view, he said, adding that every gate is chained closed. He wants to know what they are hiding. Do they want the children to do they not want the children to speak with members of Congress? And this is exactly what's going on. They don't want any of these children speaking to anybody. And right now we're hearing from doctors inside taking care of the children, and what they're saying is the following. There were several of us who wanted to talk about the camps, but the agents made it clear we would be arrested, a psychiatric counselor told me. We were under orders not to say anything. The sources say security forces called themselves the brown shirts. It was very submissive atmosphere. Once you stepped onto the grounds, you abide by their laws. And these are the brown shirt laws. She said the workers were stripped of their cell phones and other communication devices. Anyone caught with a phone was immediately fired. Everyone was paranoid, she said. The children had more rights than workers. She said children in the camp had measles, scabies, chickenpox, strep throat, as well as mental and emotional issues. So we can see right now something secretly is being done, and we all know this. This is not anything that's new here, but it's just amazing what they had to do to bring these children up on the beast, and that is the train that they use to go from Central America through Mexico with the permission of the Mexican government into the board, right up to the border, and bring them over. And now our government officials are not allowed to go and speak to them. The people inside are not allowed to use their phones or speak to anybody. They are under strict rules. Now, while all this is going on, you would think, of course, the Obama administration who's been saying that, do not send your children up here, and of course, nobody's hearing this, and this is all for publicity's sake. Wouldn't the president call the governor of these states that are having these immigration problems if they're so concerned? Wouldn't they call? And right now what we're seeing is he didn't call anybody. Governor Rick Perry said President Barack Obama had not called him since the onslaught of illegal immigrants descended upon his state. I haven't even had a phone call from the president, and this is coming from Rick Perry. The real issue, from my perspective, is this message that has come out of this administration for too many years. Come on up, cross the border, and you become a United States citizen. No, you have to go through the proper channels to become a United States citizen, but of course, this is part of their bigger plan. Okay, now it looks like the White House quietly granted itself power to censor any type of freedom of information that they're going to release. The Obama administration has quietly granted itself the power to censor or delay information that could embarrass the White House, and to track who is seeking any such derogatory data, several federal Freedom of Information Act workers say. The move came back in April of 2009, and this was a memo from the White House counsel Gregory Craig to all federal agencies. And of course, they're trying to keep things that they don't want out. And of course, this is what they're doing. They're very secretive. This is not a transparent government whatsoever. Now, we see a new Cybersecurity Information Sharing Act bill being proposed, and this one is being, of course, proposed by Dianne Feinstein. And we see that it's going to pretty much do away with any type of privacy. And this draft of a U.S. Senate bill aimed at making it easier for organizations to share cyber threat information poses serious threats to personal privacy. The bill ignores many of these civil liberties protections. And of course, they want this through because they want the private information of every single individual doing business with every single company. This has nothing to do with cyber threats and cyber attacks. Privacy groups contend the CISA, not CISPA, but CISA, would also authorize a free flow of real-time threat information between the private sector and U.S. government agencies, including the NSA and DHS. This is just another way for them to get their information without having their motives questioned. This new flow of private communication information to the NSA is deeply troubling given the past year's revelations of overboard NSA surveillance. It would enhance the NSA's role in the civilian cybersecurity program, risking militarization of the program. The bill is very vague on the specific instances under which companies can share data or what type of information can be shared. What's happening here is they'll be asking for information. They don't care what type of information is given over, and most of the time it will be all the information, and the companies cannot be held accountable for this information. So we can see that this is to get people's private information, their investment information, their purchasing information. They want everything. And right now, the 5-person panel that was handpicked by the president concluded on Tuesday that the National Security Agency's use of foreign intelligence surveillance provision to spy on non-Americans is not unjust whatsoever. They can do whatever they want. And of course, it was his personal 5-person panel that he picked, and this resolution wasn't going to be done any other way except that the way they wanted it. Now, remember a couple days ago, it's about 5 or 6 days ago, John Kerry made a threat to Russia. Secretary of State John Kerry, he warned Russia, and this was back on June 26th, that they had hours literally to retreat from Ukraine. Well, here we are. He did absolutely nothing. Nothing was done. There was no follow-through. It was lip service and a threat. And if you notice, they do this on purpose to get it out on the corporate media so people believe that Russia is actually doing something. This is the whole purpose of it, to make it look like other countries or groups are actually doing something, because you say, stop doing something, or we're going to take action. And people right in their heads, they don't look any further, and they say, oh my God, they're doing something. I wonder what they're doing, but who cares? We know they're doing something. And they're using this as propaganda, and you can see the United States government is going to do nothing because Russia is not doing anything in Ukraine. They have no troops there. They already revoked the provision for them to invade Ukraine, so pretty much nothing was done. Now, an interesting story coming from the U.S. State Department spokesperson, there is information that a lot of Russian people in Ukraine are pretty much fleeing and getting out of the country. I mean, it couldn't be because of the anti-terrorism forces bombing civilians and killing many, many people, and people are scared for their lives, so they're leaving leaving Ukraine to go into Russia. But the U.S. State Department put a little bit of a spin on this, and what they're saying, and this is coming from Mary Harf, she's questioning the validity of the UN estimates, because what she's seeing is that, these people aren't actually leaving Ukraine for the reasons that is being reported, that they feel their lives are in danger. They don't want to be part of this puppet regime, the bombing, the minefields, the white phosphorus, the chlorine gas. It's not because of that. Most of the people are leaving Ukraine to go see their relatives, to go see their grandmothers. And they'll be returning very, very soon. This is what they're actually saying. It's just unbelievable how they're trying to convince everyone this is what's going on in Ukraine, when we know better, where these people are escaping because they see what is going on. Children, mothers, fathers, grandparents are being killed. They are targeting schools, civilian areas, and they're not letting up. Now, it looks like they knocked out the power in Slavyansk. The fighting, which takes place in eastern Ukraine, looks like the power was cut, and now they are in darkness, and we'll have to see if they can get the lights back on there. And, of course, this makes it very difficult for people to survive because you don't have electricity, refrigeration, the water pressure, and it's very hard to cook. And the same thing could happen here, most likely happen here in the United States, and this is why I've been telling everyone to prepare. Not just me, but many people have been telling everyone to prepare for something of this sort when they do cut the power, and you need to be ready to survive on your own without power or water. Now, it looks like the Kiev government, Russia, Germany, France, and the East Ukraine decided on a ceasefire and a roadmap to lay out how they're going to talk about peace. And they're saying that the group should include representatives of both Kiev and the self-defense forces, and they're saying they need to get together. The OSCE will monitor the entire situation, but again, they have a lot of work to do. And of course, I don't see the United States in this group. I see Germany, France, but you don't see United States here whatsoever. You do see Russia, so it's going to be very hard to say that Russia is trying to continually move this forward when you don't even see the United States in the mix of people talking about peace, because, again, they don't want peace. They're controlling the puppet regime. They're telling them to press forward, and, of course, the banks are giving the order to take back the country, and this is what they're trying to do. But, again, they're trying a peace route, and who knows if it will work. Most of the time it's for show and nothing really comes about, because both sides never can come together on any of the issues. And again, you see Poroshenko on his side. He only wants it one way, an ultimatum. Lay down your arms, give up, we'll take those people to prison, and the rest will fall into line with the new puppet regime. Now, it looks like Russia is down in Cuba, and it seems like they are looking for oil off the coast of Cuba. The drilling area is located north of Havana and both sides of the Gulf Stream. State Department spokesman has already announced that the U.S. officials expressed their concerns about Russia with Cuba. But the United States right now can't do anything to stop the drilling in Cuban waters, but what they will do is play up the propaganda that Russia is bringing in and coming back to Cuba to start this whole Cold War type of scenario again, that they might be placing nuclear missiles there and they're getting ready to attack. And you can see this propaganda start to push forward because this is exactly what they want. They want all of this and everyone to understand that Russia will be attacking the United States along with ISIS, along with Syria, North Korea, and China. Now, it looks like the Prime Minister of Iraq right now, Nouri al-Maliki, is doing the same thing Assad did. He is offering amnesty to rebels involved in the fight against the government, except for those people who have killed other people or have shed blood. So right now he's trying to use the same tactics as Assad, where he's granting amnesty to those people who went to the other side. He wants them back, and they're trying the same tactics. Now, yesterday I reported on the Kurds saying that they want to have a referendum. Maliki is out there and he's rejecting any attempt by the Kurdistan regional government to hold any type of referendum. Pretty much what happened in Ukraine is happening here. They're starting to separate. And of course, this is the United States plan, the central bankers' plan all along, and they're not out there saying anything. They're staying quiet on this, but they were very vocal when Crimea was having a referendum. They were very vocal when the southeastern part of Ukraine was having a referendum. But right now, not a word. Amazing. Now, it looks like the Iraqi parliament, they met for the first time since the election, and with 255 of the 328 MPs showing up, with others boycotting it outright, the session lasted about a half hour or so before Sunnis and the Kurds walked out and nothing occurred here. So everything is status quo. Maliki is still in power and nothing has really changed whatsoever. None of the groups could come together. Now, Kurdish officials have ignored the selling of oil by the militants and Iraqi officials. They are out there selling their oil. They have ships leaving Iraq. They're looking for buyers. Of course, the Iraqi government is saying no, all oil sales have to go through Baghdad. There was a point where the United States backed up Maliki, saying yes, any type of oil sale needs to go through Baghdad. This was just in the beginning of this year where Obama came out and was supporting Maliki on this case because the Kurds were selling oil to Israel and Turkey and not going through Baghdad. And all of a sudden, the United States government, the Obama administration, decided to say, you know what, Maliki, you need to step down right now because we got this terrorist force inside of Iraq. We're trying to completely separate the Sunnis, the Kurds, and the Shiites, and either you get them together or you step down. And of course, he's having a very big time and a lot of trouble trying to get all these tribes together. And what we're seeing as an offshoot of this terrorist, we see the Sunni tribes rising up. They're looking at this as their a time to overtake the government. We see a lot of the generals that belong to Saddam Hussein in there, and they are trying to make the move, and they have two different agendas. The Islamic State has the agenda of creating a caliphate, and the generals and the Sunni people just want to take back Iraq, and we can see they have two complete different agendas in this. Now, we understand there are about 800 soldiers, who knows, maybe even more at this time, inside the Iraq. Of course, Obama said there'll be no boots on the ground, and all these people are military assets, boots on the ground, ready for combat, and they will be flying Apache helicopters and using unarmed surveillance drones, and eventually armed surveillance drones as time goes on. Now, Obama has authorized the targeted killing of the leaders of the Al-Qaeda offshoot, Baghdadi, and he put them on a special U.S. kill list. And here we have a new bin Laden. So right now he is on the kill list. They're using his name. Here's his picture. He is the new bin Laden. He will be attacking America. So this is the person we need to go after. And look, he just so happens to be in Syria. So we need to go into Syria to get him. Now, we understand that they've been using the propaganda and they're continually pushing it. They're telling us ISIL will be attacking the United States. Lone wolf players inside the United States. They're bomb makers. They're working on new technology. It looks like they're going to use some type of aircraft to bring into the European area or the United States and have it attack the United States. We're seeing that they are using everything they possibly can. They're saying that the ISIS forces have captured sarin gas and they know how to use it and produce it, and they're really pushing this agenda. They're also pushing the agenda that Syria still has chemical weapons and biological weapons. They're just hiding this in the Alawite section, and of course we can see right now that they are really building up the propaganda with Syria. I was wondering when they were going to bring in the Syrian Electronic Army, and all of a sudden the story broke that the Syrian Electronic Army has attacked Reuters, and they're making a mockery of cybersecurity. This is how advanced they are. Now, of course, as we know, the Syrian Electronic Army is most likely made up of some type of CIA type of agenda to make it look like Syria has this cyber attacking force. And the question is, why would Syria now start attacking the United States? It makes no sense. They have no motive. They are removing the paid mercenaries from Syria. They got rid of their chemical weapons. There's absolutely no reason for this to happen at this point. But of course, they have to bring this in because they have to make the connection to Assad. And this is why most likely we will see some type of sarin gas or other type of biological weapon which they will link to Assad. They're linking the Syrian Electronic Army to him, and we can see that they are really building this propaganda up. And what they're saying is that all of these attacks are possible. They can bypass the cybersecurity, and we can see them making the case that the Syrian Electronic Army, with the help of Russia, brought down the power grid and brought down the financial institution. And we can see they are pushing this agenda really, really hard. Now, DHS right now, and I reported on this, I think 2 reports ago, about the malware, which is very similar to the Stuxnet malware created by the United States and Israel, and it looks like it has the same footprints. So whoever created this is a major actor, most likely United States and Israel. And we can see right now that DHS, and this is what concerns me, raises the alarm and went on high alert about this malware, which is targeting the power operations of the United States and throughout Europe. The Homeland Security Department is sounding alarms about hacker attack against U.S. and European energy companies that could disrupt power. They are ready to do this. They are ready to go forward. Their agenda is completely on schedule at this point. Remember what Janet Napolitano said. She said not if, but when there is a cyber attack. Now, who says this? When you're leaving office, these are one of the things that you say? No, you don't say that. You don't say if or when. You don't even mention cyber attacks, but she was very specific in her message. And we can see that DHS officials reposted and updated for the 3rd time that companies need to be on high alert. That we see communication, we see that they're trying to infiltrate the power grid system. Testing has determined that the HAVAX payload has caused multiple common OPC platforms to intermittently crash, and this is coming from the DHS. This could cause a denial of service effect or outage of applications reliant on the OPC communication. And you have to remember, years and years now, they've been telling DHS to upgrade, all the power companies to upgrade, to patch the holes, and they have done absolutely nothing. You know why? They didn't want it done. They wanted this scenario to play out. And they're saying that the hacker group, which is called Energetic Beer, and Dragonfly, which is associated to Russia, and of course, as you know, they can't really track down to see who this is really coming from. They're just using the propaganda to say it is coming from Russia. It is very, very difficult to figure out where all these are coming from. They're saying that this malware is now laying dormant on all these systems, and all they need to do is throw the switch and the entire power grid comes down. And they're searching, trying to figure out a way to stop this. And guess what? They are preparing and letting everyone know we have a new bin Laden. We have a new terrorist group. We have this terrorist group in association with Syria because Syria is also using different methods of attack on the United States. We can see they are building this entire propaganda story. Why? Because when the lights go out, the financial systems are brought to their knees. They want everyone to understand where this came from. And of course, just in CNN and other corporate media, they were talking about the Malaysian flight where they suspect that it was hijacked, because from all the evidence they can tell that it was hijacked, and all of a sudden we might see this plane reintroduced with coming towards America with some type of payload, because you have to remember the central bankers really need to kick off this event. They really need to get the war started to cover up this entire economic collapse, because what we're seeing is a huge, huge play to let everyone know we're in this recovery. And on the other hand, we have propaganda coming out of every single network letting you know that this terrorist group, the Russians, and Syria now are looking to attack the United States. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.